Very few movies in the history of cinema have had budgets as huge as the one for Fast and Furious 10. Believe us, the number is so big it sounds crazy at this point, even by Hollywood standards. What's more, fans have some pretty interesting theories about Fast X being about time travel. That definitely sounds odd for the genre. Well, let's not waste time and dive into everything we know related to this.
We are about to go on down.
First up, the increase in budget for Fast X truly comes as a shock. We all know that when the Fast and Furious series first started, they weren't that famous, but the franchise has made a legacy for itself, and they'll be wrapping it all up with Fast and Furious 10 and then finally Fast and Furious 11. According to the Wrap, the budget for this upcoming movie happens to be around $340 million. But even if Fast X is the second last movie before things end for good, the budget for it sounds a little too much, no? If there's one thing you should know, it's that not a lot of movies in Hollywood ever had that kind of a budget. So when it comes to the financial end of things, Fast X is definitely one of a kind. Keep in mind, this value doesn't cover all the marketing and promotional costs they'll have to shoulder before the movie's release. So yeah, it's really surprising the amount of money they're investing in just one movie.
Except you actually need phones in order to get phone calls.
This is Cypher, the woman who killed the mother of your child.
Now for the budget and profits of Fast and Furious 9 compared to Fast X. Even though its predecessor had a pretty big budget too, it was nowhere near as huge as this. In fact, compared to what they're spending on Fast X, the budget for F9 sounds pretty modest. We know no one really remembers stuff like this unless they're really into it, so in case you forgot, the budget for F9 was somewhere around $200 million. That's $140 million less than what they've allocated for Fast X. While F9's budget wasn't the size of a mountain, the movie still managed to earn billions globally. All in all, it was quite a success, and we're hoping with all that they're putting into its sequel, it ends up garnering the same kind of success on a global scale, because then it would be quite a loss to have invested such a huge chunk of money in a movie that ends up flopping. Fingers crossed.
Maybe one day we'll find out.
Oh, you better hope that day never comes.
Coming up, all the possible reasons for such an inflated budget. Hopefully by now, your initial shock over hearing the budget for Fast X has subsided, and we can finally talk about why this installment is costing an arm and a leg. Well, to begin with, there happen to be quite a number of reasons for such an inflated budget, and each one seems to be pretty valid. We've got a pretty huge cast for this movie, and a lot needs to be spent on their salaries and whatnot. Also, COVID seems to have played a vital role in those big figures. We'll dive into each of these reasons individually, so it's all clear for you.
Y'all see that? Told y'all I had a surprise. How you like that for a finale?
What's more, we've got new cast members along with some old favorites. As we mentioned, there's quite a cast for this new Fast and Furious movie, and when you've got such an ensemble cast on your hands, it makes sense to spend a ton of money on them. We'll be seeing a lot of characters make a return in this new movie. That, of course, includes all our old favorites. We'll have Vin Diesel, Jason Statham, Tyrese Gibson, and Michelle Rodriguez. Since all these actors have been a part of the franchise for a pretty long time, it's pretty much a no-brainer that they'll make a return. In addition, we saw some new faces in recent movies, and you bet they'll be returning back to the screen. Fans are super excited to see the likes of John Cena, Charlize Theron, and Cardi B make an appearance, even though they weren't part of the original cast. But that's not the end of it. If you haven't heard, we'll also be seeing Jason Momoa and Brie Larson in Fast X as well. And if there's one thing, it's that both of them are incredibly high-profile actors, so it makes sense for the budget to be this high. Moving on, what COVID and inflation have to do with this ballooning budget? Okay, we get that the cast alone shouldn't be a reason for that unexpected growth in the movie's budget, so we've got another valid reason to share with you. Lately, there's been a pretty sharp rise in inflation, and you can definitely factor that in as to why the budget for the movie ballooned to $340 million. The budget for the movie was reported to be somewhere around $300 million in 2021. In 2022, we're hearing of an increase of $40 million. That's all thanks to inflation. But that's not all that explains it. The The shooting for the movie took place during COVID, and you can only imagine how much those lockdowns and then the introduction of new safety protocols must have cost. With all of this in mind, we honestly don't think it's that much of a surprise for the movie to have that big of a budget. Next, how the budget increase for Fast X makes it one of the most expensive movies ever made. All this budget talk calls for mentioning how this would make Fast X one of the costliest movies to be ever made. It's how we mentioned before. There haven't been a lot of movies in the history of Hollywood with such massive budgets. So if there's one record that this sequel's definitely making, it's this one. We might forget plenty of things, but it's impossible to forget how Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides had a total budget of $379 million. That's awfully close to a 400, and no movie after that has ever broken that record. In second place for the most expensive movies ever, we've got Age of Ultron at $365 million, and following that, there's Avengers Endgame in third place with a budget of $356 million. And then, of course, in fourth place, we've got Fast X. Let's talk about if such a big budget will lead to incredible profits for this upcoming sequel. It makes sense to wonder if such a growing budget for a movie is really worth it. We mean, F9 had a pretty small one compared to Fast X, but the movie earned billions worldwide, and we're hoping the same would be true for Fast X. If we compare Fast X to Avengers Infinity War, the latter had a budget of $316 million, and it earned around $2 billion worldwide. What's more, it signified the end of a pretty popular comic book franchise, and in light of that, Fast X happens to be the second last movie before the series comes to an end. With that in mind, and also considering all the work that's going to go into the visuals for the movie, you can expect Fast X to be just as much of a blockbuster. We have no doubt it's going to be a hit when it hits the screens. Now for how fans are speculating time travel to be a part of Fast and Furious 10. With that out of the way, let's dive into all these time travel theories that seem to be swimming around. Okay, yeah, we know it sounds unusual for a film like Fast and Furious to incorporate something like time travel into its storyline, but hey, the world is full of unpredictable things. What's more, fans have reasons to believe it just might be true. The culprit for kickstarting all these theories is none other than Dom's old Charger. Fans spotted the Charger on a set picture of Fast X, and it's the same one that was pictured in the 2001 and 2009 installments of the series. Additionally, even the cast of the movie seems to be toying with the idea of going back in time. The major one here is Ludacris, who plays Tej Parker in the movies. He posted a couple of stories on his Instagram where he talked about Tej returning with his Too Fast, Too Furious look in the upcoming movie, and adding to that, he captioned it, "History repeats itself," and it caught the attention of fans, and here we are now, in the middle of all these time travel theories. Finally, is time travel really something that could happen in a Fast and Furious movie? In light of that, we don't think it's very likely there could be a time travel plotline in Fast X. Look, we hear you. If F9 could fuel all those space travel theories, then there's certainly something to be had about time travel in the new installment. But even then, it's more likely these hints are merely just flashbacks to the past. In a sense, maybe they're paying homage to the previous movies through these scenes, and as such, that nullifies all the time travel theories. So yeah, it's possible they might revisit some sentimental and crucial moments from the older movies, but we don't think there's going to be a whole separate plot covering time travel, no matter how exciting that sounds. That's a wrap for this video. Do you have any bizarre theories about Fast X? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.